You are listening to the Billy Dees podcast.
All right. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the program. As always, I am absolutely thrilled that you are here. If you've never checked us out before, we are primarily an interview and a commentary-based podcast. But today we have an interview. On the line with me is Marsha Scarbrough. Marsha, how are you?
I'm great, Billy, and thank you so much for inviting me to be on your show.
Oh, absolutely. It's great to have you here. Marsha, you're in Spain, so we're dealing with a time difference. How's the weather in Spain today?
Well, in Spain, it's a beautiful day today. I'm in Granada, and it's sunny, but not too hot, just in the 70s.
Is it true that the rain in Spain falls mainly on the plain? Is that true?
The rain in Spain falls mainly along the Bay of Biscay in the north. That's green Spain.
That is fantastic. Let me tell you, Marsha is... She has a long history in working in Hollywood with names that you would probably recognize. She has a book called 20 Years in Hollywood, Tales to Tell. And to give you an idea of the book, and she's got this voiceover mic now, so she's going to use it. She's going to read this very brief opening post, and take it away, Marsha.
As dawn broke over the Texas grasslands, I was lying face down on the range. Dried cow dung surrounded my head. The walkie-talkie on my belt crackled with the words rolling and action. I couldn't see Burt Reynolds, but I knew he was lip-syncing to the music I heard as horses galloped across the horizon behind him. It was a heartfelt country song written by Dolly Parton. The walkie-talkie croaked, "Cut?" I sat up. I was an apprentice assistant director on the best little whorehouse in Texas. When I was accepted into the Directors Guild Assistant Directors Training Program, I understood that I would get on-the-job training in the administration, organization, and execution of production on major feature films and primetime television. Lying down beside bovine feces was never mentioned. My walkie-talkie declared, "Going again." When the wranglers had herded the horses back to their starting position, I cuddled up to the cow pies one more time. I asked myself, how did I get here?
Well, the obvious question would be, how did you get there? Is that what you aspired to from an early age, or exactly how did you get there?
Well, I had dreams of being a director, and in Hollywood, if you don't have really amazing contacts, that's not going to happen unless you find some other way in. So the only other way I could find in was the Assistant Directors Training Program, which still exists, which is an apprenticeship of 400 days of on-the-job training. And if you complete that, then you get into the Directors Guild as an assistant director.
Mm-hmm. What are the duties of an assistant director?
The official job description says the assistant director handles all administrative and logistical problems for the director. So the director only has creative problems to solve. And God knows they have enough of those.
Yes.
So what it is in practical terms is during pre-production, we do all the scheduling, budgeting, ordering, planning, and preparing the paperwork. All of that. I love the part of taking the script apart and putting it back together in the most efficient way to shoot it. To me, that was always a really challenging puzzle to figure out how to get the job done in a certain number of days in the most cost-effective way. But then once principal photography begins, the assistant directors are the ones who run the set. And there is a hierarchy of assistant directors. It's the director's team. And the leader of the team is, of course, the director. But then from the producer side, the money side, the production manager who is in the office handling expenses and budgets and things. But then on the set, there's the first assistant director who stands next to the director, communicates everything that's going on, and gets the director's wishes And then the first assistant director passes it to the key second assistant director, who executes these instructions. And then there may be other assistant directors, including the trainee, the apprentice, which is where I started. And they are out near the dressing rooms, near the makeup trailer, communicating with the actors that are still in their dressing rooms, communicating with the prop truck or whatever we need. So the second ADs are out there running around, making it happen for the first assistant director and the director. It's very logistically amazing. It's so complicated. And also it's exhausting because the crew has a contract for a minimum 12-hour day. The crew, a minimum 12-hour day. And assistant directors have to be the first ones there and the last one's gone. So our day is at least 14. And if there's any overtime, it's more than that. So, and you're on your feet, thinking, running, all of that time. So it's very challenging and interesting.
Yeah, I would bet. Now, just unrelated to whether you've worked with them or not, what are some of your favorite directors? I mean, everybody knows like Steven Spielberg and things like that. Is there one that you really love or really wish you would have had? Would you have ever wanted to work with Hitchcock or anybody like that?
Well, sure, Hitchcock, I think, would be amazing. But the one that really is my favorite director, and I did get to work with, is Clint Eastwood.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And that was an amazing experience for me. I learned so much. He's quite a master. I
bet. I've heard, a lot of people say he's the same person in every movie, kind of like John Wayne. I mean, that may or may not be true. I think he's a pretty good actor, but a lot of people don't realize he's an especially talented director, and he has musical skills as well. He's written a lot of his own scores. Right.
He's basically a jazz pianist.
Yes. Yeah, so a pretty talented guy, and he's still with us. And, the odd piece of trivia, I think he was born the same year my mom was. Now, my mom passed away a number of years ago, but he's still hanging in there. He's still hanging in there. So that's.
I think he directed his last movie at like 92 or something. Yeah. Like, you go. That's he always did take really good care of his health. I'll say that. He eats right. He exercises every day.
That makes a difference. It really does. Yeah. Celebrities in general. I suppose celebrities are like anybody else. There's probably some really nice ones and there's probably some goofballs. How would you characterize working with celebrities?
Well, you're right about that. I mean, you get the good, the bad, and the ugly. I mean, some of them are a nightmare, just, ego run wild. And some of them are wonderful and really intelligent and with emotional intelligence, and then everything in between.
Yeah.
So that's another thing that makes the job interesting. One thing I liked about the job is it's you go from project to project. Basically, you're freelance. And I like to see a project from the beginning to the end. For me, that's very satisfying.
Yeah, sure.
To start it and complete it. But also, you work with different people every time. You work in different places every day. Like one day you might be in a church and the next day you're in a prison. So... and then you might have a star who's just impossible. And the next time you have a star who's like, your therapist. So, so for me, that was a big advantage of the program.
Oh, that's great. Well, you've had some magnificent experiences. My guess is that you really loved your job. Is that true?
Well, what we say is, when people are like, do you love your job, or your job sounds so fun and interesting? We say, yeah, the first 8 hours of any day are fun and interesting. The second 8 hours, not so much.
Yeah.
So that exhaustion is always looming there. And the thing is that you don't really get to sleep very much as an assistant director. Mm-hmm. You're the last one gone after all the paperwork, camera reports, and everything is turned in. And then when you get home, if you're a key second, you have to do paperwork. You have to set up the call sheet and the production report for the next day. So if you get 4 hours sleep, you're lucky.
Yeah.
So I did that for some years, and I don't recommend it.
You talk about camera work. I heard Quentin Tarantino, he was talking about the digital age, and, a lot of projection now is digital. And, in his words, cinema, needs to be wide angle film. And people basically now, when they go to movie theaters, his words, I'm going to ask your opinion about this. Everybody's going into these theaters and they're basically watching TV.
Well, I don't know if that's true, because I know things are being shot digitally, but you can put any lens on a camera. So if you want a wide angle lens, you can put it on a digital camera, and then there's nothing to stop you from doing that.
Yeah, I think his point is the stock, the way it's shot, the way you have to get the color and everything right the first time for the exposure to be right. I think he's referring more to that. And you mentioned The Good, Bad, and the Ugly, which ties into Clint Eastwood. That was a big influence on Quentin Tarantino. A lot of his stuff, if you've seen the Western, you can see the influence, like in Inglourious Basterds. You really can. And I think he was a fan of those long close-ups and those scenes where they let actors do their thing. And it's not so much that anymore. I think
but that's nothing stopping Tarantino from doing that if he wants to do it. he's an 800-pound gorilla. He can do whatever he wants. So if he wants close-up of two big blue eyes, he can have it.
You obviously worked on a lot of projects. What's your favorite?
Well, in terms of artistic, like what I think is the best movie artistically, I would say the one I worked on with Clint Eastwood, which was Bird. It's called Bird.
Oh, yes.
It's about the life of the jazz musician Charlie Parker.
Yes.
With Forrest Whitaker as Charlie Parker and Clint Eastwood directing. And the script was nonlinear, like jazz. And it was basically about a romance of a black man and a white woman. And so Clint asked for the crew to be integrated with black men and white women. So that was like the reason I got the job, I think. And I had a sort of bad attitude going in because I had just been coming off of a project where it was a sort of machista nightmare for me. And I thought, I really needed the money. I had just filed for divorce, and it was pretty tough. And I was a step down. I was usually a key second, and it was a second job. And so I went in kind of like, oh God, it's going to be dirty, hairy, macho hell. Yeah. And I was so wrong. It was the opposite. He was, I say he's the most feminine man I've ever met and the most masculine man I've ever met.
Wow.
It was like he had such emotional intelligence that everything was 3 octaves above everybody else in terms of his ability to work with people, communicate what he wanted, be decisive, be supportive of the actors. Like, to me, it was just really eye-opening that it could be done so gracefully.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned it coming off of a bad project. The obvious question is to ask you about a bad one. And I don't know how detailed you want to be, but, about naming it. I can tell you, like, Michael Caine was talking about doing Jaws 4. But he said the good part about it was it bought a house. So what was probably something you worked on that you looked at, or maybe because of the way you were treated or the way it was put together, you just felt really was a bad experience for you?
Well, there'd be a few contenders in that category. And I'll talk about a couple of them. One of them was Hard to Kill with Steven Seagal.
Oh,
which is not my kind of movie. I know some people like that movie, but not me. And he was really very, very difficult to work with.
I've heard.
And an interesting little juxtaposition was that came right after Bird. I think, I had worked on Bird. And then a couple of films later, I worked on Hard to Kill. Both of them had scenes that were shot in the Greystone Mansion in Beverly Hills. This is a famous movie location. You've seen a lot of things shot there. Well, in the trouble with the location is that you have to park the equipment in a parking lot that's up a huge flight of stairs from the house. So you can put things in from a truck at the beginning, but once you're started, all the equipment and the actors and everything have to go up and down these stairs to their dressing room. Mm-hmm. So when I was there with Clint Eastwood, and at that time he was in his late 60s, I think. Mm-hmm. And he said, we're like, oh, sorry, you got to go up and down the stairs. And he's like, oh, great. We'll get the workout in at work. It's like, we'll get some exercise and, multitasking. Yeah. Great. Then I was there just a short time later with Seagal, who supposedly is a martial artist. And he was like, I'm not going to go up and down those stairs. I'm going to get too tired. You're going to have to hire a limousine to take me from my trailer to the house. So that's the difference between those two.
Yeah. Oh, geez. I've heard that about him. And, I think that's very consistent with other things I've heard. Is that the only bad one you wanted to talk about?
Well, we'll get to them, I'm sure. Well, another thing is I also worked on television series. And one of in the world, when we were apprentices, trainees, everybody had to put in some time on chips.
Oh, okay. Right? Why did I know that one was coming? Go ahead.
And that was, there's a lot about that in the book. Okay. And the way that those guys treated me in particular, and just their lack of professionalism and talent, I would say. So, yeah, that was one.
Do I'm going to say directors in general, assistant directors, and so on and so forth. Do you have a pipeline of information? Do you guys have a list of this is somebody you want to work with, this is who you don't, etc.?
Yeah, we have a shorthand because we know each other, and you work on projects with different assistant directors, and everybody has worked with different actors. And so the question we ask of each other is, would you like to have dinner with them?
Fair enough.
Yes or no? So, Clint Eastwood, definitely yes. Seagal, definitely no.
Yeah.
So that would be my tip off to you if you're another assistant director. Would you want to have dinner with Seagal? No, thank you. But so my ideal dinner party, I think, would be like Clint Eastwood, Dolly Parton, who's a wonderful person, Mary Tyler Moore, Pierce Brosnan, Gene Wilder, Jenna Rollins. And then the dinner party from hell would be Seagal, Farrah Fawcett, Bruce Willis, Madonna.
Yeah. All consistent with what I've heard. Yes, all consistent with what I've heard. Did some of the prima donnas, did that factor into why you left the business? Or was it just time to go?
Well, not so much. The reason that after close to 20 years of doing it, I was 50, as I had started in my early 30s. And Directors Guild did a life expectancy survey of its members, broken down by the different job categories. And at that point, my job category was first assistant director. I was 50. The life expectancy was 58. So I said, okay, this is my last job. I want to live more than 8 more years. And so I made it to 79. I beat the odds.
Well, you sure did. I got to tell you, there's and by the way, I just want to remind the audience, the book is titled 20 Years in Hollywood, Tales to Tell. We're talking to Marsha Scarbrough. I'm going to go.
And let me add, Billy, that the book it's a memoir, but it's being delivered on Substack.
Oh, okay.
So I have a Substack blog. I'm Marsha Scarbrough at Roaming Crone. I have a free blog, but if you want the movie business stories, that's the paid subscription. And every other week you get an installment of the story.
Awesome. What I would probably go with next is Hollywood's going through a lot of changes, and most of them at this time are not that good. And I got to tell you, I think a lot of that has been self-inflicted. You're talking about the prima donnas and the arrogance that comes with a lot of celebrities. Going back to the old days of like Samuel Goldwyn and stars of the time, or whether it be Humphrey Bogart or Marilyn Monroe or any number of them. In those days, they kept a pretty tight lid on what the actors were doing. For example, you did not see them walking around with vaginas on their head in front of the White House. You didn't see them selling cars and Bitcoin on advertisements. And with the, I think what really hurt them was during the pandemic, the extolling the mask and everything else while they went and did something else. I think that really that really did a lot of damage to celebrity culture. And what has happened now, and I'm not necessarily taking a side. You take somebody like Robert De Niro, for example, one of the most revered actors of all time, in some of the best movies ever made. He has, whether you agree with him politically or not, he has altered his legacy. He is now a political lightning rod. And quite frankly, when you hear him talk, he sounds no different than my next door neighbor. This does not sound like an Academy Award winning actor. It sounds like my next door neighbor. And that really hurt the illusion, in my opinion. I think kind of like the Wizard of Oz, pay no attention to that man behind the curtain. These people are not in a lot of ways as special as they were once thought of. Do you have an opinion about that?
Well, yes. And I don't know, do we really need them to be special, or do we need to know that they're really human beings? And they are like your next door neighbor. They just happen to have incredible talent and be very well trained. They have studied, how to do this and make it look easy. And it's not easy at all. Mm-hmm. The other thing is that certain things needed to change. Like when I worked, it was before the hashtag Me Too movement, and women were really exploited. And we were some of the first women who went through as assistant directors. And we had a really hard time. The men really did not want us doing that. And one of my nightmare jobs was a movie with John Travolta, and he was really great to me. But the studio had told the producer that he needed to hire a woman. He didn't want to. I was one of the first women to graduate with the qualifications to do it. And he felt forced to hire me. He didn't want me. And he tried to sabotage me through the whole movie at the expense of the movie sometimes, just to try to make me look bad. Or I don't know if he thought I was going to collapse into a puddle of tears and look ridiculous, but he didn't want to fire me. So, I mean, it was like, that has to stop, So certain things
totally
things needed to change and are in the process of changing. And one of them is there need to be more women directors, because we can do the job as well as men. Mm-hmm. So, on both sides. But also in the past, say like Rock Hudson, who had to keep the fact that he was gay in the closet because he was a hero. I think that people need to be allowed to be who they are. And then we see their skill when they play the part. Yeah. So
I totally agree with that. I do in that aspect of it. But if let's say, for example, I'll throw out Tom Cruise is one, Daniel Day-Lewis, a number of others. You don't see them on TV hawking stuff. I just think it's unbecoming of an actor of that caliber. It's not like they don't make enough money to begin with.
Yeah.
And here again, I'm not talking, I know a lot of character actors in bit parts that these people are not extremely wealthy. I would say the vast majority of actors are not. But when you reach the level of wealth that you're right up there with Jesus Christ. I think at that point, when you're selling cars, to me, that is, you're taking advantage of your fan base. I don't think there's any artistic integrity. And that's the one thing I'll say about Tom Cruise, despite what people have said about him, or Daniel Day-Lewis, or any of these people. Daniel Day-Lewis, you don't even know he exists except when he's in a movie.
And I think Tom Cruise is really a good actor.
Yes.
He does what he does really well. And I've really never heard anybody in the business say anything bad about Tom Cruise.
Yeah. Oh, to the opposite. I got a lot of friends in Los Angeles, and that's kind of lead me into what I'm going to say next. In that, here again, not getting political, but I've had friends tell me now that when you drive around Hollywood, there was a time when 25 years ago, you would see things getting shot. There was things happening. Now there isn't a whole lot happening there. And a lot of it is because of the regulation that's in California. A lot of it is because a lot of studios overinvested in streaming. It used to be like a movie came out, it would be months before it came out on video. And then when it did come out on video, you actually had to buy something. You had to buy a disc or a tape or something. And that was often a second breath of fresh air for the studios. That's all gone now. And quite frankly, I think one of the other things that don't get mentioned very often is the phones. There's a lot of very talented people on TikTok, for example, that can dance. I'm telling you, just being honest, as good as some of the professionals I've seen. And there's a good chance if you are under a certain age, let's say under 25, there's probably a good chance you've never watched the 6 o'clock news on TV in a day in your life, and you probably don't watch movies there. Okay. And if you are even younger than that, there's a real good chance you know who Logan Paul is, but you have no idea who Denzel Washington is. Mm-hmm. That's just the reality of it. And just like Quentin Tarantino is, I think there's been a respect that has been lost for the theater, for seeing a movie on a big screen and having that experience. I think there's not enough people that appreciate that experience anymore. Is there a way that we can come back from that? Can Hollywood combat that and reinvent itself? They always said when TV came out, it was going to be bad. When cable came out, it was going to be bad for Hollywood. And then when DVDs and all the digitals that they said it was going to be bad for, nothing really hit Hollywood until recently. And there's just been a perfect storm of bad things happen. Can we recover from that? Can Hollywood become the artistic place that it once considered? In the days of Samuel Goldwyn and Cecil B. DeMille. And unless you were a real Hollywood fanatic, you probably don't know who those people are. But can those days return?
Well, those days are gone, Billy. But there's a couple other problems here too that you didn't mention, and one is AI.
Yes, I was going to get to that. Sure.
Yeah. But then the other one is that the reason you're not seeing things being filmed in Hollywood when you drive around is that they're being filmed in other places.
Yes.
Like Spain, for example, Netflix has its European production headquarters in Madrid. So you see production on the streets of Madrid, or you see sets like Game of Thrones type things out in the countryside in Spain, because it's a lot cheaper here in Spain and we have really good crews. So, why not? It's a global marketplace.
Sure.
And then AI coming in, and like actors and writers particularly are afraid that AI is going to take their jobs. I personally don't think it will, because I think that AI never really has the human touch. Yeah. Of being able to connect to each other emotionally and understanding our human psychology the way that actors and writers do. Getting the experience back in the theater, I think, is important. I like the theater myself, but it has to be able to work for the marketplace, right? Because I think now with prices so high, inflation so rampant, to go to the movies and buy popcorn and maybe go to dinner afterwards is prohibitively expensive for people.
Yeah, it is.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
That has to be rethought in economic terms. And I'm sure theater proprietors are thinking about it, because they must be really suffering as well.
Yeah.
So
I think that's one thing that Tom Cruise has tapped into really well. One of the things when movies first came out, one of the things that, kind of drew audiences was there's only so much you can do on a stage, but the movies could transport somebody who was actually filming somebody walking on a wing on a biplane or something. And the audience was just, some of those routines, like hanging from the clock hands above the traffic and everything. People would pass out watching those movies in the theater. And it took you someplace that you couldn't go on stage. And I think Tom Cruise, the insistence of doing some of those stunts and everything, certainly with Top Gun, it brought people back for a while to see that on a big screen and know that it was actually happening. When I'm sitting in that theater watching Top Gun 2, the Maverick one, it occurred to me that there could be a generation of people in that audience who never actually saw a real jet sequence in a movie screen before, because they've all been miniatures or CGI or something else. And I think he understands that people will go see to something that you can't normally see. And I don't know that getting people back into the theater to watch something that is essentially a video game now, a really good looking video game. Some of that stuff is so computer generated. And some of the movies are taken from video games. That's going to be a problem. I think you got to get real stuff back on the screen. That's my opinion.
Well, I agree. And to me, it's always the writing. I mean, I think Tom Cruise has a good sense of himself as a hero. Yeah. And the power of, especially to young men, who's his demographic, of, being the good guy. Mm-hmm. And he does that really well. His things are really well written, I think, also. And so, it starts with the script for me. Like, the script has to have human connection, something that's really going to grab you emotionally. And then you go from there. And certainly the special effects are good. But to me, sometimes they're even overkill. Like, I get like Lord of the Rings, which is wonderful, but then it's just like another one battle after the other in the sequels, that it almost becomes boring to me. Mm-hmm. That it's just like this kind of repetitive. Yeah. So to me, that needs more emotional relationships between friends, between parents and children, between lovers. Sure. You got to grab me with something more than a battle.
Absolutely. The one thing I'll say about AI is Val Kilmer, there's a movie coming out now which is going to be totally generated by AI with his likeness. And apparently his estate has agreed to this. There was that sequence that had, I believe it was Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt fighting each other. There was a 2-minute clip, and neither one of them were actually there. And it was very convincing. As convincing as that is, I don't think I'm kind of agreeing with you that, for me, for example, I don't necessarily make movies, but I do a lot of video for people, for the various companies and stuff. And we have to shoot on location. We have to shoot, various people talking about their expertise and so forth. And I don't think that is necessarily going to be replaced by AI, because that still requires boots on the ground. You have to shoot the person, you have to record the person, you have to plan the shot. There has to be, something done. But where it does hurt this industry is, like, for example, with me in the long form content, I used to get people bugging me all the time saying, hey, I could take your podcast and break it up into clips and do all these things for you. And there was a lot of people who made a good living doing that. And now that can be done with AI. And the AI will break your project up into clips depending on how you tell it to do it. It'll put subtitles on it. It'll put B-roll in it. It'll do all that automatically. So I think a lot of the people who did a lot of the busy work in the industry are going to be the ones that get hit the most. Would you agree with that? Is that a pretty fair?
Yeah, I think that's definitely true for sure.
Yeah. Would you have any desire to create something now?
Well, I have my book.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I mean
something like a short movie or something like that, a short or something like that.
Sure, I would love to, or even something longer. Write a screenplay. That's where it starts. I have one I'm trying to sell now, okay. But yeah, absolutely.
Okay, well, you better give me a part in it when you get it together.
Okay. It's shot in Spain, Billy.
Oh, that's great. Here again, we have been talking to Marsha Scarbrough, 20 years in Hollywood, tales to tell. Go ahead and tell us one more time how to access that because a lot of people might not have caught that.
Okay, it's being published in installments on Substack.com. So go to Substack.com at Roaming Crone, or put in my name, Marsha Scarbrough, that you can see there. And my blog will come up. I have free content that goes out 4 or 5 times a year. But to get the Hollywood stories, it's the paid content, which will cost you for 1 month about the same as getting a margarita at El Torito. Mm-hmm. And you'll get twice a month, you'll get my Hollywood stories in great detail with all the celebrities and all the crazy things that happen while you're shooting.
That is absolutely fantastic. Marsha, always fun to talk to you. Boy, I tell you, you got some great stories and your energy for this is very high. It's always a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you, Billy. It's always a pleasure to be on your show.
Awesome. My name is Billy Dees. You can find the Billy Dees podcast anywhere you find podcasts. We have over a 10-year history now. So you can pretty much find us anywhere you find podcasts. As far as social media goes, you can find me on the old Twitter, which is now X at Billy Dees. I'm on most social media, but that's probably my social media home. There's something about the real-time nature and the trending nature of X that works very well for podcasting. Do you have any place on social media you want to mention?
Well, I have a website. It's my name, marshascarbrough.com. I'm on TikTok as Roaming Crone. I have a Facebook page. It's Marsha Scarbrough. I'm on Instagram. Yeah, I'm out there.
Everywhere. You are everywhere. Marsha, thank you so much. Thank you so much for listening to our podcast today, and we will talk to you again very, very soon. I'm Billy Dees and host of the self-titled podcast, The Billy Dees Podcast. We are primarily an interview and a commentary-based podcast featuring authors and creators talking about their craft, advocates for community issues, and myself and an array of co-hosts discussing current events. There's no partisan ranting and raving going on here, just great content. You can find the Billy Dees Podcast on your favorite platform and on Twitter at Billy Dees. Thank you, and I hope you listen in.